What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Weekly GCap, the only source you'll ever need to catch up on all the gaming news from the last week. As always, we got quite a couple stories to go through, so let's go ahead and get right into this. First things first, Foamstars released last week and the reviews went live. Right now it's sitting at a 59 according to the critic score and a 7.1 according to the user score, so this is one of those instances where the players seem to be enjoying it more than the critics. Personally, I got to dive in, I played it for a bit. This isn't one that I'm necessarily going to be sticking with long term. That being said, I could see myself diving in from time to time, just play a match, have some fun. It's basically like Splatoon, but not Splatoon. Again, it's free with PS Plus Essential right now, so if you have the service, you might as well download it, try it out, see what you think. Next up, Tomb Raider 1 through 3 Remastered released and the reviews went live. Right now, it is sitting at a 78 on Metacritic. This game released on Valentine's Day, which, let me just say, if you were there in the 90s for this game, that's quite fitting. This is all three of those classic Tomb Raider games remastered for only $30. And one thing worth noting is that you can flip between the old and the new graphics similar to in Master Chief Collection. Just press a button, switches between them. It's a very good remaster. Me personally, I'm a bit of a purist, and when it comes to replaying games, I always go back to play it on native hardware, that original release, but, you know, I did pick this one up just because, I had to see how the game looks with the new graphics and frame rates and everything and controls, and yeah, it is definitely worth the money. Next up, Mario vs. Donkey Kong releases on the day that you guys are seeing this video, and the reviews are also live for this one. Right now, it's sitting at a 77 on Metacritic, which is interesting because the original game on the Game Boy Advance got an 81, so there's that. But anyway, for those that don't know, Mario vs. Donkey Kong, by the way, this is a remake of the original GBA game. Again, for me, the game isn't out yet, but by the time you guys are seeing this video, the game is out, so this is definitely one that I'll be picking up and trying out because I used to love the GBA game back in the day. I love the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series in general, so I'm very excited to try it out. Next up, the Splatoon 3 side order DLC was announced. This coming from Nintendo of America's YouTube channel. Quote, challenge yourself in a new single-player campaign that's designed to be replayed over and over again. As Agent 8, you must defeat wave after wave of enemies to ascend the ominous Spire of Order, accompanied by the drone Pearl. Gear up for some serious splatting when Side Order Wave 2 of the Splatoon 3 expansion pass paid DLC for the Splatoon 3 game launches on the Nintendo Switch system February 22nd, 2024, end quote. So this is essentially going to be like a roguelike mode, which is really interesting. We've seen a lot of games going in this roguelike direction, or at least like putting out updates that have like roguelike elements like God of War Ragnarok and Last of Us 2 and now Splatoon 3. But you know, with Splatoon, just the format of the game, I think this is really going to work out, so I'm super excited to try this one out. Next up, there is a second demo for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth coming soon. This coming from Final Fantasy VII on X, quote, the update to the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth demo scheduled for February 21st will apply improvements to the visual quality when selecting performance mode from the graphics options. The same improvements will also be applied to the full game, end quote. So, but first things first, again, the second demo is going to be coming out February 21st, but also there was a lot of complaints that, hey, when you choose performance mode, yes, the performance is a bit better, but it's a little blurry. I don't know, the textures they've been a little bit too low quality for what you would expect, even though you were choosing performance mode. But it seems like they've, you know, ironed those things out. They've updated it. So once the second demo goes live, February 21st, which is 5 days from the time that this video is going up, hopefully things will be looking a bit cleaner overall. Next up, we got a couple of upcoming Ubisoft game release windows announced. This coming from IGN, quote, Ubisoft has reported its financials for the third quarter of its current fiscal year, and in doing so outlined what we can expect from this year and the early part of 2025. In the short term, Q4 2024, January to March 2024, because, you know, fiscal years are different than normal years, includes the imminent launch of the much delayed Skull and Bones, can't believe that one's actually coming out, as well as free-to-play Call of Duty style shooter X Defiant. Then moving into the next financial year, Ubisoft committed to launching the promising Star Wars Outlaws in 2024. That means it will come out at some point from the beginning of April to the end of December 2024. Assassin's Creed Codename Red, meanwhile, is down for release during the 2025 financial year, which ends March 2025. Seems likely Ubisoft is targeting an October or November 2024 launch for Assassin's Creed Codename Red, which is set in the long-awaited feudal Japan universe. Elsewhere, Ubisoft mentioned free-to-play games The Division Resurgence and Rainbow Six Mobile for fiscal year 2025. Expect more in May, Ubisoft said, end quote. So, it's interesting that we're getting Assassin's Creed Codename Red this year. I mean, obviously, this has been a highly anticipated game in the Assassin's Creed community, and I can tell you firsthand, ever since it's been released, the first thing I was thinking is like, dude, this is gonna be like, because there was a lot of comparisons drawn between like Ghost of Tsushima to like Assassin's Creed back in the day. Like, hey, Ghost of Tsushima is basically like Assassin's Creed in Japan, and now we're actually getting that Assassin's Creed in Japan. That's not to take away from Ghost of Tsushima, though. That's one of my favorite games of all time. Like, that game is an absolute masterpiece. But it's just interesting because it seems like we're almost getting onto this yearly trajectory of Assassin's Creed games. Like, they've had a lot of stuff they've announced, a lot of stuff up the pipeline. We just got Mirage last year. This year, we're about to get a new one. So, I'm just saying, like, it seems like they might be almost transitioning back to that annual release like they had back during the PS3 and 360 era. I don't want them to get to that point of where they feel pressure to put out a game every single year, because that's what leads to things like the launch of Unity, for example, but we'll see. It's still pretty exciting. A lot of good stuff up the pipeline for Ubisoft, and I'm excited to see what 2024 has in store for them. Next up, it seems like Ubisoft is giving up on making VR games. This coming from Video Games Chronicle, quote, "We have been a bit disappointed by what we were able to achieve on VR with Assassin's Creed," he explained. "It did okay and it continues to sell, but we thought it would sell more, so we are not increasing our investment on VR at the moment because it needs to take off. We have been very impressed by what Apple came up with, and we think it's fantastic hardware, but we continue to look at this VR business as something that we have to look at but not invest too much in until it grows enough," end quote. So this was just something like just a small piece of an interview that had happened that I just kind of wanted to highlight here, because it's kind of interesting, right? The prospect of all these different developers. We've been hearing it time after time again lately, how, like, you know, there's been VR dedicated dev studios that have either been shutting down or having layoffs, or other companies in general just kind of behind the scenes being like, hey, we aren't too sure about VR right now. Like, yes, you know, VR is something that we're interested in, we want to develop for, but we can't put all our eggs in that VR basket. And it's just interesting because, again, you keep hearing these CEOs and these companies saying things like this, like, hey, we want to make more games, but we're not going to do it until it grows. But how is it supposed to grow if not enough people are making games for that? You know what I mean? But I feel like that's just more a problem of VR in itself compared to the games that are being made or coming out for it. Obviously, there's a bit of a barrier to entry, right, when it comes to VR. Whether you go with an all-in-one headset or whether you get an accessory for, like, the PlayStation VR, the PlayStation VR 2, or whatever it is, you know, even beyond that, even if you get the equipment for that, there's a whole thing with, like, motion sickness and actually needing the space to have that stuff, and just how much of just a hindrance it is to have to put on the headset, plug everything in, get your room set up, and it's just, I don't know. Again, there's like a whole barrier to entry. We've seen a lot of cool tech coming out lately. Like, there was this thing that came out a couple weeks ago. I forget if I covered it on the show or not, but basically Disney had this thing where there's like this technology they're working with, like nanotech almost, where like when you run or walk or whatever, it helps keep you in place, which will kind of help alleviate the whole, oh, I don't have enough space for VR thing, and also just, you know, just expanding the possibilities of what is possible in VR. But again, just with the barrier to entry right now, I feel like there needs to be more tech created and more workarounds, especially for people like me. Like, I haven't played VR in years. The last time I played VR was like when it was first kind of blowing up, you know, I played like a couple matches of Beat Saber, played Super Hot once, but beyond that, I don't play because one, that's not how I want to play games, and two, I have a very weak stomach, so yeah, no thanks. It's just really unfortunate because there is a lot of possibilities there and a lot of innovations that can be made yet in the VR space. We see it all the time with all these VR games coming out. It's just, again, it sucks because it's one of those things where, like, well, the companies are saying, hey, we need to wait until this grows a bit more before we invest more into it, but if nobody's investing anything into it in the first place, how is it gonna grow? So right now, VR seems to be at a bit of a stalemate. I feel like once the tech gets a bit better, once more innovations are made, once things just expand overall, and hopefully once more workarounds are found for people like me that get super motion sick, or just, you know, the accessibility of not needing as much space, then I feel like we'll start to see things grow a bit. But as of now, this just seems to be where things are at. Next up, Kadokawa acquires Aquire. Yeah, we have peaked with this one, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, this is coming from Gamatsu. Quote, Kadokawa Corporation has acquired Octopath Traveler series developer Aquire from Gung Ho Online Entertainment, the company announced. Quote, to strengthen the ability to create IP and games as part of our game business strategy, we have made Aquire Core into a wholly owned subsidiary. The company said in its earnings results for 3 months ended December 31st, 2023, by acquiring the company, which has produced million-seller hit titles, we expect to generate synergies with our existing game-related subsidiaries, strengthen our planning and development capabilities group-wide, and enhance our lineup of console games, end quote. So, this is just one of those examples of a company looking to expand, something similar to what we've been seeing with Microsoft, which, you know, obviously Microsoft is a well-established name in the gaming industry, but, you know, they've just been looking to expand overall, same thing that we saw with Embracer, and here, just Kadokawa, just acquiring a whole studio. I know I just mentioned Embracer a couple, you know, moments ago, but don't worry, Kadokawa doesn't seem like one of those people where they're just throwing their dollars anywhere they can until something falls through, and then, well, yeah, we know what's going on with Embracer right now. It's actually a pretty sad situation overall for all the developers over there, but Kadokawa just seems to be acquiring something, just trying to expand into the gaming space a bit more, and, you know, that's totally cool, so we'll see what comes of this. Next up, the IGN Live event was announced. This is coming from IGN. Quote, today IGN has announced that we'll host IGN Live, an in-person 3-day fan event in Los Angeles this summer featuring gaming and entertainment creators, developers, publishers, and enthusiasts. The event will take place in early June, and while official exhibitors are expected to be announced in the coming weeks, for now it promises to include world-class talent, parties, networking opportunities, and unique attractions from a curated list of leading exhibitors across gaming and entertainment. It will include live IGN shows, tournaments, first looks at new releases, and panels featuring headliners from games, television, movies, and more. A portion of ticket sales will go to charity via Humble Bundle. IGN Live will serve as one component of IGN's annual summer of Gaming event, which has been running in digital format since 2020 and has historically included a number of gaming announcements, celebrity appearances, interviews, and other presentations. In addition to the in-person event, IGN Live will also stream its presentations over the console, mobile apps, and on IGN channels. You can register for more information about IGN Live at the official website, end quote. So, this just seems to be another event similar to like the Game Awards or Summer Game Fest, where they're trying to fill the void that's been kind of left behind with E3 just being no more. So I'm excited for this. Do I think it's going to fill the shoes of E3? Of course not. Nothing ever can, let's be honest. But it seems like a cool event. Not something I'll be going to in person because I don't like leaving my house. But I'll be tuning into the streams, and who knows? Maybe this could be the next E3. You never know until, what happens. So we'll see how this goes, but I'm actually pretty excited for this one. Next up, unfortunately, we weren't able to cover it in this episode. And I say unfortunately because by the time you guys are seeing this video, this thing already happened. But for me, it's still a couple hours away, so I actually wasn't able to, catch the news in time in order to get this out. But I wanted to let you guys know that we'll at least be covering it next week, even if it is quote-unquote old news by then. But anyway, Xbox announced a podcast that is coming from Xbox One X. Quote, please join us for a special edition of the official Xbox podcast. Hear from Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, and Matt Booty as they share updates on the Xbox business happening February 15, 2024, 12 p.m. PT, 3 p.m. ET, and 8 p.m. GMT, end quote. And again, it already happened by the time that you guys are seeing this, but we'll talk about it next week. There's a lot of controversy going on there with Xbox potentially going multi-platform, this, that, and the other. A lot of stuff circulating right now, but we'll talk about it next week. Next up, this is a new segment that I want to introduce to the show where we cover, the free Epic Game Store game of the week, since it's a free game. But anyway, right now, Dakar Desert Rally is free on Epic Games. It is free until the 22nd, and again, it's free on Epic Games, so if you play on PC, or even if you don't have a PC, just if you think you might have one in the future, or even if not, it's a free game, you might as well just get it. It is worth noting that next week we have Fallout 1, 2, and Tactics, all for free, all three of them. So obviously I'll remind you guys next week, so then you guys can remember to redeem the games, because that's 3 games for free right there, and 3 amazing games at that. But again, this week Dakar Desert Rally is free. Next up, we got the February PS Plus Extra and Premium games for you guys. First, we'll start out with Extra, those being Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Lego Jurassic World, Lego Worlds, Need for Speed Unbound, Rogue Book, Rogue Lords, Tales of Arise, Tales of Zestria, and the Outer Worlds Spacer's Choice Edition. Then in the premium tier, we have Resistance Retribution, Jet Moto 2, Tales of Symphonia, and Tales of Vesperia. An amazing lineup overall, and honestly, just looking up and down the list, these are all amazing games, and I can recommend any of them. Though, if I had to make one very specific recommendation, I would just say any of the Tales games. Doesn't matter, all of them are amazing. It's a relatively big series, but I still, for some reason, just kind of feel like it's still underrated in the grand scheme of RPGs. So really, Tales of Arise, since that's the latest one, I'd say probably dive into that if you want like the most recent Tales experience, but really, you can't go wrong with any of them. They're all amazing. And finally, I had a cool little story that I wanted to share with you guys. So obviously, most of the time we cover like the big headlining news, whatever the new releases are, but this one, just, something more chill, something cool that I found online, and I wanted to share with you guys. But anyway, 2 lost SNES games were released after 28 years. This coming from Eurogamer, quote, 2 F-Zero games exclusively released on Nintendo's Satellaview SNES service have been restored by fans and are available to play for free. The BS F-Zero Grand Prix games were first made available in a series of broadcasts in 1996 and 1997, including remix courses from the original SNES game and some exclusive tracks too. However, these games appear to be lost in the mute city of time until now. If you're unfamiliar with the BSX Satellaview, this SNES add-on was released only in Japan and allowed users to download games through a series of satellite broadcasts that players needed to tune into. Broadcast content could only be stored on special cartridges, meaning most Satellaview games, including the BS F-Zero Grand Prix games, are now incredibly rare. However, recordings of the F-Zero broadcast were uploaded to YouTube back in 2018, which someone named RomHacker and Guy Perfect then used to recreate those lost games. Next, the project made use of a tool called Graphite created by YouTuber Flibbity Dibbity, designed to view footage of Super Mario Bros. Being played and calculate the positions of the characters and button inputs. This tool was repurposed by Guy Perfect for F-Zero to recreate the layouts of the exclusive Satellaview courses using assets from the original F-Zero game, with further assets created by artists Porthor and Power Panda. Now the exclusive courses are available to download in a mod for the original game that incorporates the new content. But wouldn't it be nice to play the original? A $5,000 bounty is still in place for anyone who can source the original BSX carts, or is that a wild goose chase? End quote. So, again, just a really cool story I wanted to share with you guys. Just these games that were essentially almost lost for its time just because, you know, the whole Satellaview thing. Like, it's very rare to come across those games nowadays, as the article said, because again, it was one of those things where you had to be tuning in at that time to download it from the satellite, you know, the broadcast. Obviously, we never had it in the US, so I never got to, you know, nobody over here got to actually, like, use it for ourselves and try, but I mean, it sounds like it was absolutely insane. It just blows my mind to think that back in the day, I was playing Donkey Kong Country on the SNES, and then, like, you know, halfway around the world, you know, somebody over in Japan was just downloading games to a cartridge from a satellite thing on the SNES. Like, that would have blown my mind back then. I mean, it's still mind-blowing to know that the, you know, SNES was even capable of that, or that technology existed. Obviously, we've known about this technology for a while, but this game specifically, it's cool that we can finally have a way to play. But anyway, that's all the stories that I got for you guys this week. So now I'd definitely love to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on literally anything that we talked about? Whether it's the 2 lost SNES games that were finally recovered, what are your thoughts on the PS Plus Extra and Premium lineup? Have you gotten to play any of the new games that we talked about? Just whatever it is, whatever you're thinking, I would definitely love to hear from you guys. But anyway, this is Weekly GCap. New episodes go live every single Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern, so if you want to catch them as soon as they go live, well then, I know when to be here. But anyways, that's gonna do it for me, guys. Thank you guys for watching. Have an amazing day and an amazing weekend. Stay beautiful. I love you all. Peace.